How's my custom Taisho armor from Mountain Armory holding up 8 months later? We'll find out in today's video. So this armor was custom sized for me. It fits great. It's just a little bit of gap on the side here. That's the COVID-19 quarantine 10 pounds that I've picked up. But when I ordered it and received it, it did fit great. I've been very happy with it. Able to wear it for long periods of time without any issue. A couple hours is the most that I've worn it continuously so far. It's a lot lighter than some of the European style armor that I've worn. I haven't had hardly any issues with it at all. The one thing that I've noticed is that on the legs, I do have the knee cup here, which would be typical of an armor for horseback for that, because they're in the saddle, they have their legs up, they want that extra protection there for the kneecaps. However, I'm noticing it hitting a lot on the Haidate skirt armor here. So I've actually, even though it has a button inside to strap it around the thigh, left that undone because it's getting in the way. One of the things I do want to order is a different set of the shin guards for that, the Suneate. I want to get the solid plate and then just the Kiko or the Brigandine for the knees. It'll be flexible. It would be more reflective of what someone on foot would have worn. I think that's going to work a lot better. Other than that, I haven't had to do any modifications to it. I do want to add a second tie, even though it's not quite historical, to help close this up a little bit. Having the extra belt does help. I did try wearing the padded belt underneath, as I've heard that you can wear the padded belt underneath. Most people wear it on top, but it's meant to be underneath, and that you sit the armor on top of it so that the shoulder straps aren't sitting on your shoulders and you're not bearing all of the weight there. That's very similar in principle to the pourpoint or the arming jacket for the European style armor, which takes some of the weight off the shoulders as well. However, this is so light, I haven't had any issues with it. And I didn't like the way that the padding was making it sit out. It made the Kusazuri skirting sit out a little bit too much, and I like the trimmer look for this. May not be an issue if you're a slightly less rounded figure than me, but for me, it was an issue enough that I decided not to wear it at all. The helmet does simply tie underneath of the chin. There are loops that you'll see on the mask that are meant to tie it off like that. There are a few different ways of tying it. One of the other things that I do want to order for this armor is a Nodawa, which would be a supplemental neck guard here. It'll sit underneath, but it's not the part that's attached to the mask. It's another piece that would go underneath that could be worn without it. So I do want to pick one of those up as well to help complement the armor. I've been doing some reading on the actual Mempos, and it seems like they were a lot more of a fashion statement and worn for the intimidation factor, but that they weren't worn very much on the actual battlefield. They do limit your breathing a little bit. It's not terrible. It's not quite like a European helmet where you just simply have a piece of metal here with a few holes in it. You can breathe fairly well through the mouth. It's not that much of a big deal. However, there's the aspect of breathing, and there's the aspect of there's a piece of metal sitting right on your nose, and an impact on that is very likely to break your nose, if not shove the metal up into you and do a whole lot of very gross damage that I certainly would not want to be on the receiving end of. Not that I'd want to get hit in the face without it, but at least it doesn't have that impediment where it's in the way for you like that. You're able to move much better, breathe easier, see better, and that seemed to be a trade-off they were willing to make, just like they were willing to make the trade-off that they didn't wear armor on the back of their calves. Or in some of the earlier armors, there was actually no middle to the back plate. It was called a seita, which was the coward's plate, because you were never meant to turn your back to an enemy. So they actually left that plate off of the armor. So they simply made more concessions for that, for mobility versus protection. Thank you to Mr. Astorita for working with me over many, many messages on Facebook where I chose a harness, but I wanted to change out some of the sangu. The sangu are the different parts of the armor that are considered not core. So the kote, the haidate, and the suneate are considered supplemental. The core armor itself was considered to be the breastplate and the helmet. So I did want to change a few items for that. He was very great to work with on that, took care of all my requests for it. I got to do my own custom colors for it. It's my own specific color for the plate as well as the texture. This is the black Uzumaki style, so it has a nice texture to it that I thought looked a little bit like lacquer, as it historically should. Everything down to the color of the laces, the fabric itself, the fabric for the Under Armour pieces, for the arming garments for that. Take a little close up here at the shoulder pieces. This is one of my favorites. These are the Osode, which are great sode or large sode. So They're in an older style, so they're meant to simulate scales. The harness is very closely based off of one in a museum in Tokyo from the 16th century. They weren't using individual scales anymore, but they were using a large plate that was meant to simulate scales for that. This is the exact style of this armor. The actual armor it's based off of has purple lacing. I chose to go with green because I like the colors to it more, but it's very close in historical style to it, which I very much appreciate. The construction to it is great. There's no real modern materials on this that are not a reasonable compromise for something that you would have used historically. The edoshi for the lacing is all artisan silk, so it's a fake type of silk, but if it were real silk, it would have been a lot more expensive, so I'm happy to have that compromise with it. The plates have all been shaped by hand. They did a fantastic job on that. All the coatings to it, there is no lacquer to it, so that is one concession. So the plates are a little bit thinner than they would have been historically because there is no lacquer to it. However, the urushi lacquer is kind of poisonous, so it's not something that people work with on a daily basis or weekly basis or monthly basis because poison. I haven't had any issues with any of the kusazuri or the mail coming off on this. Everything has stayed attached nice and clean. None of the lacing has popped for that. The undergarments that I bought, the Yoroi Hitatari, which is the fabric that I'm wearing here underneath, that you can see on the legs and the jacket for this. Everything for that is held up well. There hasn't been any real abrasion or wear and tear for anything more than I would expect for wearing armor repeatedly like this. So that's holding up great. There's no visible damage. As I said, I've worn this about 6 times so far. I do expect over the course of wearing it 4 years, it's going to wear. It is a fabric garment. It's meant to have a little bit of wear and tear, but that's simply something they would have replaced back then as well. I've also been debating on getting a surcoat for this or a jinbori. It's a commander type vest that they would have that would be open in the front, and you would see it here with typically their heraldry on the back for it. But this armor has the really cool agamaki bows in the back that I'll show you here. As pretty as that is, I can't really picture covering that up with a surcoat. I think that looks a lot cooler than simply having the badge on the back. In my other armor that has the smaller shoulders, that doesn't have all the bows and everything else like that, I may get one for that. But for this one, I've been pretty happy with how it is. Mine is changing at the Sunyate and also wanting to get the supplemental piece for the Nodawa for the throat. The quality of the armor has been great. I have a few videos coming up of actually cutting some tatami and some milk jugs and plastic bottles while wearing the harness. A few people have asked, can you actually cut while you wear that? Isn't that really heavy? Doesn't that make you really slow? I bet a ninja could kill you. I'm going to dispel all of that in some of these other upcoming videos to show you that you are perfectly mobile in samurai armor. You are not burdened down by it that much. It's a little extra weight. It mostly is an issue for your cardio, but as long as you have some sufficient muscle mass, it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't slow you down enough that it's going to make you lose a fight. I also want to point out the Igawa, which is the pattern leather for it, that you can see here. It's also below on the Haidate, right here. It's a great design. Mr. Astorita sent me a message once I'd made the order and said that, hey, we have a pattern based off of an actual historical printed Igawa pattern for this. Would you like to use it? And I said, of course I would. Anything like that that makes it more historical. They've been great to work with. I've appreciated everything they've done with the harness. Again, they did not sponsor this video in any way. I'm simply a happy customer and have enjoyed my communications with him, both for purchasing armor and just having a little bit of discussions of samurai and knights and things to that effect. He's a very knowledgeable person and I've enjoyed talking to him. Okay, so what do you want to see next from this armor in a video? Do you want to see mobility? Do you want to see some more cutting with it? Do you want to see some close-up of it? Is there anything in particular that you want to see? Let me know in the comments below. Throw me a like, throw me a subscribe. Let me know what you want, and that way I can prioritize accordingly. I like making these videos, but I like making videos that people really want to watch even more. So let me know what you want to see, and I'll make those first.